Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Experimental Parent with me, Jasmine. On this episode of our emotional engagement series, I wanted to talk about teaching empathy, compassion, and respect. So we all know that these are values that we want to inculcate in our children, and we want them to be upright, good and kind people, and these are values that they need to have. And many a times we spend so much time thinking about how we can embody these values in them, what kind of books do we want them to read, what kind of knowledge do we want them to have so that they can have all these values. And we tend to ask ourselves, is empathy nature or nurture? So in our children, especially younger children, we don't always see them being naturally empathetic. And when they don't, we start to get very concerned. Well, oh my gosh, this child has no empathy. This child doesn't know how to show compassion for people. And some children are naturally more empathetic. And we're so heartened to see, they just naturally go out to help their friends. They just naturally know how to comfort their younger siblings. So really, is it nature or nurture? I think that it varies from children, and some of them just show more empathy naturally than others. But I don't think it really matters as much as how we can cultivate empathy in them. So to me, empathy is just as much learned as it can be innate. And the best way for them to learn it is to have been a recipient of it. In receiving it and in seeing and observing how the people around them show it, they can better learn, and it may start off as mimicking, as imitating those actions, but later on they start to see the fulfillment of exhibiting such a behavior, and it becomes slowly ingrained and inculcated in them. So I'm going to put it into 3 simple ways. First of all, to model it, let their inner voice shine through, don't rush to fix things, and to take off your own lens first. So you've probably heard also many people say that we have to model our actions if we want our children to follow them, and that's absolutely true. We have to model empathy first, but how do we go about that? It's often in the actions that we don't think very much about that true empathy can shine through, and our children can learn best in those scenarios. So example, for boys, we don't naturally see them behaving extremely empathetically towards their friends, or they may not be so conscious of their friends' feelings and not be so quick to comfort them in their times of need as girls may be. But it does not suggest that they do not have empathy. And in fact, it is in those moments that we can really show them what empathy is and how through those simple gestures we can be a bit more aware of how our friends are feeling and potentially help them feel better. So for example, if your child's friend or sibling is hurt and you don't see them going to help that sibling or friend, that's okay. It doesn't mean that this person is so heartless, this child has no heart. Like I said, at this age, the toddlers especially are very self-revolving. At this age, it's not natural for them to always consider everyone else as they go about their days and their actions. So we can show them how these other people and how they feel is also part of our ecosystem, and what we can do to help these people and how it feels when you help someone. Okay, so for example, if your child doesn't show much reaction or doesn't do much when a sibling or a friend is hurt or falls down, you can be the one to go up there and say, "Are you okay, Sarah? That must hurt. Would you like to have a pillow? Will it make you feel better? I can lend you mine." So when you say something like this, your child, obviously who is observing, will notice that, so when my friend is hurt, they would probably feel pain, and me acknowledging that pain and going up there to offer comfort can help to make my friend feel better. So maybe next time they will do that same thing. It could be with their stuffed toy, it could be with their friend, it could be with their sibling, but in modeling it, in copying what you did, they are rendering comfort to their friend. And when their friend feels better, they feel better, and they realize for themselves that feeling, that satisfaction, that peace you get from helping someone. Okay, so it starts in all these little behaviors, and it starts with you modeling it for them. The other thing for children to be able to show empathy is when they were shown empathy when they needed it most. And that's where letting their inner voice come out makes a big difference. And not rushing to fix them or to fix things for them makes a big difference. So how do they become recipients of empathy? So your child could be dealing with something an emotion that they don't know how to cope with, or they could be experiencing an emotion, they could be letting you know about it, and the last thing you want to do is to just dismiss it or tuck it under the rug and say, oh, don't, you're fine. And this could really just be you trying to reassure your child and tell them that it's going to be okay. But by saying you're fine, it's like telling them, oh, it doesn't matter. How you feel doesn't matter. And that in itself is not showing the compassion and empathy that we aim to cultivate in our children. So if your child says, I'm scared, don't say, oh, you're fine, don't be scared. It's again putting on that dictator hat and saying, don't be. I'm telling you, you don't be. You don't have to be. Right? You could just really be trying to help your child realize that it's nothing to be scary about, but you have to validate that it is scary for them. Right? It is scary. So what is a better way to say it? If they say, oh, I'm scared, you can say, I know this can feel really scary, right? What can I do to help you feel better? If your child has a meltdown and they just cannot stop crying, and you know that they probably don't even know why they're crying, and they just cannot stop, and at this point you're probably also already very emotionally riled up by your child acting this way, but the last thing you want to tell a crying child or an emotionally riled up child, or an emotionally riled up adult for that matter, is to calm down. So if your child is having a melting down and crying, don't say stop crying or calm down. That's the least helpful thing you can say. So if they're having a meltdown and they're crying, first of all, you can just let the emotions come out. Yeah, let them cry it out. Or you can say, I know, this feels terrible. You can go ahead and cry. If your child's sibling, younger sibling, snatches a toy or destroys, one of the whole construction that they did out of their toys, don't say, oh, it's fine, he's just a baby, just let him play for a while. Because when you do that, first of all, you're dismissing their emotions, how they feel towards their achievement, right? Imagine you just created this most wonderful product and your colleague just comes over and just slaps it, and your boss says, oh, don't be offended, this person didn't mean it, or don't be offended, she's a newbie, she doesn't know. How would that make you feel, right? So that's invalidating all the efforts, the satisfaction that you got from creating that product. So you have to be aware of that. Very often we're really rushing in because you don't want your child to be angry with the younger sibling, right? You say, oh, don't mind him, it's not really a big matter, or I'll give you something else to replace it. And you probably feel like, oh, babies don't know what they're doing, so what they are doing can be forgiven. But that's the second conversation you want to have. The first conversation is, first of all, what that child did or what that younger sibling did caused your child to feel sad, to feel like you just destroyed a toy of my own, or I was playing something, this was my space and you intruded into my space. We must first validate that. Okay, so you have to say it as it is. The facts is the facts. What Titi did was not okay, right? We don't snatch toys, or what Titi did and destroyed your toy was not okay because you made a wonderful construction there and you would have loved to play with it. So I understand you're upset because Titi destroyed your toy, or Titi took your toy without asking, or Titi destroyed the train that you were building. Validate that. That fact is that action was not okay. Then we can bring in the context that, oh, but Titi doesn't understand it yet because he's still not at the age where he can comprehend what we are saying, right? So Titi doesn't understand yet because he doesn't know how to talk and he hasn't learned the right way to play. So can we show him, can we teach him what is the right way he can play so that he can play better with you next time? Right? So now you add in the context and then you add in the how can we all be part of that solution, right? That will both validate what your child is going through and also teach them how they can make it better the next time. Why is this something that we don't have to be offended about? Yeah, so it's setting the context but also validating their emotions. The other thing is, as parents, we always want to fix things for our children. We always want to make things better for them. And sometimes because we want to do that, we rush into giving them the solution, or we rush into giving them what we think is the solution for them. But sometimes real empathy is really not fixing things. It's not telling them not to feel something so that they'll feel better. It's letting all of that come out. And if you've watched the movie Inside Out, you will find perfect examples of that. How Joy was really eager to just get the elephant right to the train station, and she was just trying to help him to not think about losing Mr. Riley. But sadness came out and allowed Boo Boo, was that the name of the elephant, helped him to let those emotions, those feelings of sadness, of grief, of losing Mr. Riley come out, let him talk about it. And after he's talked about it, he feels better already. Yeah, so it's that same concept. We sometimes have to let those heavy emotions come out in order for our children to begin to heal. Right? Otherwise it's like when there's a wound and we just quickly paste a band-aid over it. The wounds are actually festering because they're not getting enough air, they're not getting the medication they need to heal. So this is what we're trying to do. When we let our children surface their inner voice, their inner emotions, even if they are uncomfortable, even if they are heavy emotions that we don't really know how to help our children deal with yet, it is important to let them talk about it, to validate how they feel, and then we can begin that healing process of what can we do about those. So you know the saying always goes, don't just stand there, do something. And that's always how we want to be for our friends, for our family, for our children. We want to be able to do something for them, right? But that puts us back into fixing mode, where we're just very eager to help to fix things. So sometimes empathy comes in the form of don't do anything, just be there. This is especially true when our children are going through very big feelings like anger, their frustration, sadness, they're having a full-on meltdown, and you feel like you just want to quickly stop that, like put out the fire. But sometimes just being there, writing it out with your child, helps to let them vent that pent-up energy that they have, the pent-up frustrations, before they can open up their hearts and their minds to listen to what you have to say to fix it. Right? So sometimes don't rush the solutions, let the emotions come up, let their inner voice come true. No need to fix it, be there for them. When my oldest son was going through all his meltdowns, and there were just moments where you probably don't even know why he broke down in such a big, mighty manner. But when I just sat there with him and I let him cry it out, I let him show me his worst possible sides, eventually he does calm down. He does come over for a hug, and in that embrace he knows that he's okay. He knows that he is safe. He knows that Daddy and Mommy love him for everything that he is and for everything that he's going through. We are there with him. And that's enough to just give him that psychological safety he needs to calm down. And when he is ready, I ask him, do you want to talk about it? And I walk him through that process of what he might be feeling, why he might be feeling that way, and how we can reframe it to turn it into an opportunity for growth. Now, we always say that empathy is about seeing the world through somebody else's lenses or putting ourselves in the shoes of someone else. But the key thing about empathy is we cannot even begin to look at the world through that person's lenses or in the shoes of that person until we first take off our own lenses. And that means taking off our own lenses of prejudice, our own lenses of judgment, our own lenses of assumptions and beliefs. Because if we go into that conversation with our child, attempting to be empathetic with them, but we're still wearing our lens of judgment, we are more likely to say something which has already been influenced by our own judgments, our own assumptions, and not really connecting with the child and entering their world fully. So whatever we're going to say is going to be more like a prescription than coaching them and helping and journeying with them to the solution. And sometimes we have our own baggages. We bring with us our own baggages, our own past experiences, or certain expectations that we want met that were not met at that point in time. And this taking off your own lens can also manifest in the form of when you are very focused on your own outcomes. There is a certain objective that you want met, that you don't realize what's been happening in your child's world, what's going on over there, and you're so fixated on like, okay, we gotta go already, that you're not seeing that beneath your eye level is something else going on and you were not aware of what was going on over there. So in one example, I observed a child was in a toy store playing with a very fun toy. They had samples of the toy open already, and they were letting the children play with it. So the child was playing with it while waiting for her mother to check out. So she was with her dad, and her mom was checking out at the cashier. So her dad was really fixated on checking whether mom was done with paying already, because the moment she was done, he immediately, right, said, okay, let's go, we gotta go already, because we're hurrying to Amma's house. So I saw that the child was still very happily fixing her toys together, and when the mom checked out, when the mom finished paying, Dad was very focused that, okay, mom is out, okay, that means whatever we need to get done over here is done. It's time we move. So he said, okay, let's go. And then he just grabbed her things and asked her to get up and go. So I saw in her eyes, she was obviously longing at the toy. She was looking at the toy really longingly, and she had to just get up and go, right? So as she was being dragged away from the toy, a few seconds later, when I would turn my back to look somewhere else and go about my own things already, I heard her having a meltdown. So she had a meltdown there and then, and her dad was obviously very frustrated, because his goal in his mind, was, we need to get out of the store and go to Amma's house because we don't have time already. But look, to the child, they don't have that concept of time. They only know that I'm playing happily right now, and suddenly, without warning, that playtime was stopped abruptly, and I was told to go leave something that I was having a very good time doing. So it is in our nature biologically that we will gravitate to things that bring us pleasure and not go to things that don't bring us pleasure. So I'm having a good time over here. It's a natural instinct to be very reluctant to peel away from it. And the dad, I think, in his hurry or in his need to move on to the next agenda, he forgot to turn and see that she was about to put together the toy, and that would have made it quite a masterpiece of a magnetic toy. And if we were to rewind that and for a moment pause the video camera of that incident right before the dad said, okay, time, let's go, what could he have done to help her more willingly get away from the toy and move on to their next agenda? It probably would have been if he had stopped to see what she was doing, right? And see that she was actually piecing together that last move that would have helped her accomplish her masterpiece. And if he had just allowed her that few seconds to put it together and say, wow, well done, that was a very nice piece. Okay, we gotta go now. Could you just park it very nicely, and the next time we come back, we can always see whether this toy is still around? Maybe she would not have gone full on meltdown. So that's what I mean, right? Our own lenses of the concept of time, the agenda of the day, what we're supposed to do, take them out first so that we can put it on, and then we can see the world truly at our child's eye level. So I hope that this has helped us to become more aware of how we can cultivate empathy, compassion, and respect for our children by modeling it, by allowing their emotions to rise up to the surface and not trying to suppress or fix it for them, and to always make sure that we first remove our own lenses of prejudice, of judgment, of our own baggages, before we can then engage and fully enter into our child's world and let them see the beauty of having empathy, of showing respect, and of showing compassion by first being a recipient of it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Experimental Parent. Remember, we are all in this together. So if you have a story, topic suggestion, or feedback you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can DM me on the show's Instagram, The Experimental Parent, or leave a comment here. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like or subscribe so you never miss out on future episodes. Your support means the world to us. So let us know, how was your experiment today?